I think a handbook is better than nothing, but I don't think it's the end all be all that a lot of attorneys pretend it is. And I say that because even though it's documenting the rules and the laws and then having an employee acknowledge that they understand the rules and the laws, practically, I don't find them useful. So from a trial lawyer and a litigator's standpoint, I've cross-examined, mostly in deposition, but also maybe in trial. You cross-examine, and for example, let's say if an employee says that they didn't get paid overtime, right? And then there's a very particular overtime policy that disputes that. I'd break out the handbook and then I'd say, hey, read page 44. Do you see paragraph 17? It indicates that there's no overtime. And they all basically say the same thing. Oh, I didn't read the handbook. I just signed it because they told me to sign it. And I think a jury looks at that and goes, yeah, that's what I did with my handbook. So I don't find them useful. What I do find useful is policies and procedures. So what we do at our firm is we draft policies and procedures specific to the business, and each policy, meaning that anything you could be sued for, is a separate contract. And it's roughly a page or two, depending on what it is. The arbitration agreement is longer than the overtime policy, right? And it's basically set out like a contract. So now, using that same example, let's say I had a one-page contract that talked about overtime. So it would say something along the lines of, there is no overtime. Paragraph 1. Paragraph 2, if you think you're going to work overtime, notify a supervisor. Paragraph 3, if you've worked overtime, notify your supervisor, things like that, right? So then when I cross-examine and I say, okay, you claim that you worked overtime. Is that correct? Yes. All right, read paragraph 2. I represent that I'll notify a supervisor if I think I'm going to work over. All right, what supervisor did you notify? Okay, there you go. That's much better than a 40-page document that includes everything under the sun to me. And then on top of that, it's one page. It's got their signature on it. It's dated. So a jury is more likely to go, yeah, probably didn't work overtime. So I find handbooks to be not useful, number one. But number two, they're very expensive. The typical handbook that's done very well and drafted by an attorney is probably going to cost you 10 grand. They become outdated very quickly because the laws change every 6 months to a year. And again, they're designed for a very specific purpose, but practically speaking, it doesn't work for that purpose. So with policies and procedures that are separate contracts for each policy based on things that you can get sued for, FEHA claims, wage and hour, different things like that, it's very easy. It fixes all of the problems with the handbooks. For example, not as expensive, right? Because, you're not spending 10 grand for a handbook. You're just spending a certain amount of money for very specific policies. That's number one. Number two, when the laws change, it's easier to remove one policy and replace it than it is to redo an entire handbook, right? And number three, I think it works. I think when you cross-examine an employee, a former employee that sued you, and you point out like, hey, here's a policy that you signed that indicated that there was no overtime and there's no reason to work overtime, and that you have to notify a supervisor if you did, or if you worked overtime and you didn't do that, chances are you didn't work overtime. So anyway, that's my thoughts on handbooks versus policy.